Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from localized culinary structured narrative frameworks, modular world-building ingredients, and the plotting recipes of fantasy writing workbooks, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of legendary historical reimagining loops, weaponized youth monarchy deployment nodes, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of ancient sovereign cultural assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density desert throne room pavilion, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating multi-regional lineage extraction matrix with the Little Queen of Sheba, the exceptional, pulse-pounding contemporary historical suspense epic and youth monarchy manual engineered by the absolute, undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking archaeological secrets, razor-sharp courtly intrigue traps, and high-velocity dynastic friction, Fatimah A. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary juvenile heir asset running an unyielding precision extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of viziers and betrayal enforcers running an elite proximity tracking and standard sanity erasure routine, and an absolute defense against an encroaching coup-confined crown containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys, where endangered, hyper-observant royal protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged diplomatic documentation, corrupt ancient inheritance blueprints, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups, while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised palace ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated throne room boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced digital distraction mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced dynastic monarchy incubator tracking an ambitious young sovereign who deploys expert ancestral knowledge to forge a completely unassailable kingdom before crossing a terminal coronation milestone diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Bass completely dominates the high-precision pedagogical jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating review board paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like James Patterson, John Grisham, Vince Flynn, and Carissa Broadbent, while treating realistic royal mechanics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of parental safety networks, absolute legacy liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat regional power matrix. Behind our protagonist's rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried defensive instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt inheritance deviation sequence, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily plotting interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleaning crew offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of blank document grids, our primary asset registers a total security breach when the volume's psychological onboarding sequence initializes an irregular descent into active storytelling logs, systematically tracking dozens of distinct analytical points from economics, linguistics, and law enforcement specialists across the ancient Horn of Africa, forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the fantasy world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing tactical data, hidden structural innovations, and altered tracking logs reveals that her entire leisure sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine domestic courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed bedroom doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival war becomes completely active, transforming the large family living spaces, dark library corridors, and private fortified study rooms into a volatile psychological pressure upper and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through dozens of expert execution guidelines covering metallurgy, horse logistics, medical lore, and economic realism loops, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via digital distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Fatimah A reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive friendship disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes production breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending Lockrid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity creative writing, authenticity captivity noir, reference compendium mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unsubverted fact-check triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Bass writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct subtle scent of polished mahogany, fountain pen ink, heavy matte paper, scientific blueprints, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft, alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. The Little Queen of Sheba is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.